So to the question, can we use creativity as an outlet to help with recovery for mental illness? The question came from mental health chat on Twitter, which I inadvertently became part of. My train was delayed. I was looking at Twitter for the first time in forever because I can't manage this many social media things all at the same time. It's not humanly possible. But I'm glad that I did, because I stumbled across a chat which I hadn't been part of for many moons, and it did throw up a question which I have quite a lot to say about. I'd also just come from therapy, which probably meant I was a lot more emotional than I otherwise would have been. But lately I find myself struggling with lots of unresolved memories. So for me specifically at the moment, this is to do with very close, what I thought were lifelong friendships, which have disappeared. So I'm thinking of two very specific people here, one of whom was my bandmate for 12 years and my best friend, and someone that I spent more or less every hour of every day with throughout multiple tours, rehearsals, horrible, intense, passion-fueled arguments. Was also an ex-boyfriend of mine, but you know, like back in our late teens. So we'd managed to then sustain a band relationship beyond the point of when our romantic relationship ended. And he, for some reason, we had a really stressful tour. We'd gone abroad to France, and a guy was driving us on tour, which has never happened before. Normally we'd have to drive ourselves, but we had a record company and they provided this guy, and it was really stressful because all of us were horrifically disorganised, and stuff happened, like we ran out of petrol on the way to get a ferry. Everyone was tired. We kept having to stop so people could sleep so we didn't crash and die. It was just really stressful, and I may have remembered this wrong, but as far as I can remember, we never fell out. We just didn't book any more gigs after that because we were knackered. And then weeks turn into months, turn into years. I tried to get in touch a lot, and just never seemed to get a response. And then because of that, I was, you know, drunk texting effectively, so feeling really emotional about it, and then sending a message that was probably sounded mental. But you know, you kind of suppose that if someone's a friend and they know you, they'll understand that you're upset and you're just trying to reach out to them. But I don't know, maybe that's entirely my fault. But I just really want to resolve it. I want to know either yeah, they hate me and they don't ever want to see me again and this is why, or it just feels awkward now because too much time has passed. I have dreams where these people come into my dreams and talk to me and say, you have to resolve this. Like, my brain is just constantly telling me this is what I need to be doing. So yeah, I talk about that in therapy, and my therapist says, well, why don't you just ask someone that knows? Because I kind of have a feeling that a few mutual friends who I know still see him and who are still close friends of mine, or friends of mine, because right now I don't see anyone. I'm basically just at home or at work or at the gym. That's my life right now. But I don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable, and I don't know if they would even know. I don't think it's really a subject that may even have come up between them. It doesn't seem like something that you would just sort of throw in there at random. Well, it would be for me, but I know most people aren't like that. So it kind of just leaves me in this situation where I don't know what to do. I can't get any resolution. I'm in pain. Like, it hurts me to think about that. And then coming to this chat, see, I'm tearing up already. Coming to this chat on Twitter is a question and answer chat. Often I feel like I'm the only person who works. I don't know if I really count as working in mental health, but you know, I go and give keynote speeches at events about managing mental illness in the workplace, and my kind of area of specialty is how organisations can make the workplace a less stigmatizing place to be for people that have mental illnesses, because we don't really welcome people at the severe end of the spectrum into employment very readily. People don't understand that it can be a really useful tool for recovery, and they don't make it accessible enough. I've had some horrible experiences that I'll talk about over videos to come, and and I've had some really good experiences, but my wish is that I use all of that information to help other people. I don't feel there's any point in me having gone through those bad experiences if no one gets to learn from it. What's the point? That will be my legacy. That's the reason that I exist. And then leading on from that is creativity, which for me is, it's a big part of me as a human being. I've always done music. It took me a long time to have the confidence in my ability to write my own music, and part of that was as a result of being in a band and never feeling like I had the same amount of talent as the other songwriter in the band, my friend that I'm really desperate to get back in touch with. And it was only after we stopped doing that and I started to make a solo album that I realised I could do it. And then I got on a bit of a roll from there, and it was like a release. I needed to express the way I was feeling, and that was a good outlet for me. And I feel proud of what I did. Every time I hear it though, it does take me right back to that time. It was one of the lowest points of my life. Times when I just wanted to give up. But using that creative outlet, I guess, helped me to get it all out, put it somewhere, release it into the wilderness and move on. Not having done so much music for quite a long time, becoming a parent and then having to manage how that affected my mental health, and then, you're being responsible for a brand new human. It feels like a self-indulgence to sit in a room on your own and do music somehow. But right now I've been more focused on writing, like writing words on a page, autobiographical stuff in my blog. I find it quite easy. It's like the words just pour out of me somehow, the same way that music did. In some ways, the times when I'm not being creative, when I'm trying to keep the demons inside, forget those memories, those are the times when I feel less, and therefore I feel pain less. And I know this is something that other creatives have in common with me. Creativity is our way of releasing pain. I guess I've tried to put all of that to the back of my mind, but I can tell that it does need to come out somehow. So whether it's writing music, playing music, writing in my blog, I write for other blogs as well, and I make these videos, which are all releases in the same way. It's like pleasure and pain in equal measure. It feels like a compulsion. I can't really not do it, but it hurts to do it at the same time. I have a lot of insight into myself, and that's another thing that my therapist keeps saying to me. You know a lot about yourself. You have a good insight into these patterns of behaviour and the patterns that you have in your relationships, and I pretty much have always had that. But I think I tend to also see those things in other people, and not everyone is ready for you to point those things out. And I have had a habit in the past of assuming that other people want to be as open as I've always been about their feelings, their emotions, the stuff that they're dealing with. And it's broken down a lot of my relationships in the past. And who knows, that could be one of the reasons I'm one of those people that I get cut out of people's lives for God knows what reason. Maybe it's that. Maybe I just truly am an awful person. I'd like to think I would have enough insight to know if I was an awful person. I've done awful things, but I'm not an awful person. I've had far more awful things done to me than I have done to others. But it's frustrating having that insight because you don't always know what to do with it. It's one thing to know that you do things a certain way because of X, Y, or Z reason. That doesn't mean you know how to not do those things, or you know how to resolve those feelings. Because the things that happened in the past still happened. You can never change those things, and the memories will still be there. And I don't know whether I'll ever really heal. I think it's quite hard to come to terms with the idea that you might do all this work on yourself and go through all this stuff and still be on what one of my bosses once called the too difficult to fix pile. For some of us, that's true. You know, it's not possible to fix something that's formed in a broken way. Just the same as, you know, I've got a dodgy shoulder because when I was a teenager, I spent a long time like this, holding a violin under my chin. I can't go back and undo that. That's how it's formed. I just have to learn how to manage it in some ways. I think there's a lot of focus these days on recovery and, you know, getting better and getting well. But for many people, and I'm definitely one of those people, there isn't necessarily a recovery. There's just a management and an acceptance that you're never going to be free of those memories, but you might be able to learn how to let them wash over you in a slightly easier way. I don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable, but I shouldn't have to not say that just because it makes other people uncomfortable. It's the not knowing, isn't it? For somebody like me, 10 years down the line doesn't get any easier. In fact, it's almost worse. I hope in some ways this might be helpful to other people, even if it's something that you've been through or that you understand, or that it helps to hear someone else verbalise. It's a tough one.